This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida.
This is
Cruise Radio.
So staff writer Richard Sims just returned from a 7-night cruise aboard Norwegian Escape. It went from Manhattan, New York City, down to Bermuda and back. It was also a Halloween sailing. He joined us on the line. How you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you?
I can't complain. So here we go. Jumping right into this one. You are no longer living in New York City, so you had to commute a little bit to get to the cruise terminal. Is New York still your, even though you live like 3 hours away, is that still your home base cruise port, we'll say?
Definitely, because even though it's 3 hours away, it's 3 hours and I'm on a cruise as opposed to going, say 2 hours, getting on a plane, flying somewhere. So I still prefer it. It was also really nice this time because for the first time, maybe ever, I actually was going with someone, not sharing a room, but my next door neighbor and I were talking and she was kind of like, geez, I don't have anything planned. Why don't we book a cruise? And that's how this came up. It was sort of a last minute thing. We booked much closer than I normally do. We booked about 70 days before the sailing, and she drove us in. So that meant I didn't have to deal with a car service or anything, which was awesome.
Well, that was my next question. So you normally get the car service, but parking there, did she park at the pier? And do you remember about what that cost per night?
She did park at the pier. I don't remember what it cost per night, but it was around, I want to say like $340 for the week. And one thing that they do there that if you are going to park at the New York City pier, I highly recommend is making reservations because they were turning away people who did not have reservations. And she very, very smartly made it much, much smoother.
I was going to say, because that pier, if I'm not mistaken, that only has one level of parking because the terminal sits underneath it, right?
Yes, I believe that is correct. I mean, it was interesting because we pulled in and there were 3 ships in port. We were there, the Explorer was there, and some other ship that I can't remember the name of. And when we first pulled up onto the parking tarmac, there is a terminal, there is a parking area right there, but they actually directed us over to the other side. So we were on sort of the opposite side of the ship, which was fine. I mean, it's still, when you went to the elevator, it still took you to the same place. But so there is a little bit more parking there than I had originally assumed, but it's a very, very, very busy, especially when you get, more than one ship in there at a time.
Yeah, for sure. So before we jump on the ship here, I want to ask a couple of questions just to kind of set the stage. So as far as NCL, they offer you the perks, the free at sea, they call it. So what perks did you have before you sailed? Like, what did you get as part of your cruise fare? And did you do any upgrades along the way?
Yep. Okay. So it was a little bit interesting because I have I'm like, I don't know, Sapphire or double Sapphire or something with NCL. So I have a very high latitudes level with Norwegian. But my friend Kimberly, who was going with me, had never sailed with them before. So she had nothing. And that turned out to be both a good and a bad thing in certain areas. So I had took the perk that had 2 free dining meals, the drink package, and, kind of a low-level internet access. I ultimately decided to pay, I think it's like $228 and upgrade to the Premier package, which gives you the Premier drink package. It also gives you 2 more free dining options and the higher level internet. What was funny, though, was I also, because I am whatever level I am with NCL, I also got 2 more meals that were part of the Latitude package. So by the time you added all this up, I had 6 meals that could be eaten in specialty restaurants on a 7-night cruise. Kimberly only had 2. So we were at a little bit of inequity there. But it turns out that the Latitudes program, there had been a rumor going around for a while that the Latitudes program had changed their dining package so that if you were traveling solo, you only got dinner for 1, whereas it used to be dinner for 2. That is not true. Or if it was true for a certain period of time, it has switched back. So the 2 meals that I got via the Latitudes program were dinners for 2, which meant I could take her. So that bumped us up to 4, and then I just had 2 extras. So that's a lot of information there to process.
All right, so we're at the cruise terminal. It's time to board the ship. I know you like to normally do the Haven, but you didn't do so this time. So how was embarkation?
This was not a Haven trip, sadly. No, this was, me traveling like a normal person in a regular old balcony. Embarkation was interesting because I had the gold level latitude, I was able to get on the ship. I was going to be in the first group of people to get on the ship. You are not allowed to bring somebody with you. Now, if she had been staying in the same room with me, I could have brought her, but she's not. She had her own room. So she was not able to get on. She had to wait. It took her it was probably about an hour after I had gotten on board that she got on board. The one good thing about that was we were not able to make a lot of dining reservations in advance. This is a real problem for me where NCL is concerned, that it can be very difficult, especially if you're booking, at like the 60 or 90 day mark as opposed to 120. It can be very difficult to get prime dining reservations, no matter where you want to eat. And what they do is they then set up a venue. In this case, it was Headliners Comedy Club. When you go on board, you immediately go there and you stand in line and you try and make dining reservations. It's a terrible, terrible system, honestly. Fortunately, because I was on the ship an hour before her, I could go and get that all taken care of. By the time she got on the ship, I had gone to Headliners and made our dinner reservations. I had gone to the theater and made our show reservations, because all of that had to be done once you get on board. And I have to say, that is incredibly stressful. That is not how anybody should be starting out a cruise, is having to run around, making reservations because you weren't able to do them in advance. I am not a fan of that particular system at all. There were a lot of people who, they weren't able to get the reservations they wanted, and you would hear them screaming at the reservationists, and which is never cool. It's not their fault. But it just sets everyone's teeth on edge and makes that first hour or two on board tenser than it needs to be. There's just no reason to kick your vacation off that way.
Yeah, but I guess my question is, why that system if it's just easy to change with one step?
My understanding is that because they send such mixed messages. For example, at the top of the Daily Compass, the Freestyle Daily, the newsletter, it says, "Freestyle cruising, you don't need reservations, don't worry." And then when you read down like 3 paragraphs later, it says, "We highly recommend reservations." What they do apparently is they keep a bunch of the reservations that would be between like say 6:15 and 9:30 in the specialty restaurants. They keep those for people who want to make them later, like when they get on board. But it doesn't work the way I think they thought it would. I think the plan was that like if midweek you wanted to go, suddenly you got the desire to go to Cagney's Steakhouse, you could just walk up and they'd be like, "Okay, we don't have a reservation right this minute, but we have one 20 minutes from now." It does not work that way. You need to make those reservations either in advance before you get on the ship, if you can, or if you're signing on and it's saying nothing's available, then you need to run to this spot and take care of it then. It's not a very good system, to be honest.
I'm probably going much deeper here than I should, but is this like Disney dining where you can keep checking before your cruise and something could pop up?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for example, there was at least one night where when we went to eat, there was nothing available and they gave us a pager and we went and had a drink. And, when something was available, they gave us a table. Also, situations where it didn't happen to us, but I saw other people who were like, "Yeah, you are not going to get in this restaurant tonight." And I heard several people, grumbling about like having to wander around the ship trying to find someplace other than the buffet that they could actually get into.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Makes sense. All right, so you're on the ship, you got your dining taken care of, you go to your stateroom. What kind of stateroom did you book, and how was it over the 7 nights?
It was great. It was a balcony room. I was a little worried because at the last minute, there was a price drop, and so I called them, and they were like, "Well, we can bump you up a category, which when you're dealing with balconies, it's like not much of a difference. But I was like, okay, whatever. I ended up being on the 15th deck, which was right below the Garden Cafe. And I was a little nervous about that, but it turned out to be fine. Yeah, there was some noise sometimes, but it didn't really bother me. What was super cool was the balconies at the back of deck 15 have sort of a large overhang because the deck 15 or deck 16, I guess, stretches out further. And so no matter what the weather was, there was no wind. You really couldn't see your neighbors. It wasn't quite a cove balcony because it's not really carved out the way a cove balcony is, but it was sort of the equivalent of a cove balcony if the cove balcony stretched all the way on all four sides. It was a really cool balcony. So I was very happy with it.
And as far as storage and plugs and all of that, bathroom size?
Yeah, bathroom size was fine. I never really have problems with storage because, I've got the biggest suitcase known to man, but it shoves under the bed. I've never been on any ship yet where it hasn't fit under the bed. And I did not particularly care for the way the closets were designed because in order to get to the side of the closet where your clothes are hanging, you have to kind of like climb over a couch to get into that space. But, if that's my biggest problem, then I'm doing okay.
Yeah, that's true. So let's talk about the dining on this 7-night cruise. You mentioned you had a ton of dining credits. But we'll start at the buffet area, Garden Cafe, I believe Norwegian calls it. How was your experience in there through the week, and did you eat much in there?
I only went there, I think, once. We were in a hurry to get off the ship. I had a late start, so I ran in and just like grabbed some, bacon and hash browns or whatever, and it was fine. It was good. It looked a little crowded, but it was a port morning and people were trying to get in there and get out. And I think, that is probably what caused it there. But, I walked through there once or twice to get to other areas and it never really looked terribly congested. And while I didn't eat there much on this trip, I've eaten in the Norwegian buffet a lot. And I think Norwegian does a really good buffet. I like their buffet quite a bit.
Do they have a grill station out by the pool?
Yeah, there's one of those, just like on every ship, I think there's some kind of place where you can get like hot dogs and hamburgers and basic stuff like that. I am the worst person in the world to ask anything regarding the pool because in all of my sailings, I have never once gone in a pool. I have never once, I think once I ended up sitting by the pool for a contest because I was dragged there by some people, but I tend not to hang out around the pool. It's just not my thing, man.
You mentioned you had a ton of dining credits. So what we'll do here is I'm going to test your memory and just kind of bang through each restaurant you went to and kind of give us maybe a highlight and then go to the next one.
Okay. So we started the first night at the Manhattan Club, which is one of the main dining rooms. There's 3 main dining rooms on this ship: Taste, Savor, and the Manhattan Club. Taste and Savor are across from each other and they're basically exactly the same. The Manhattan Club, it is like it sounds, it's fancier. A lot of people think it's a specialty restaurant because they sometimes have music in there. In fact, they did have a musician playing the night we dined there. And even though it has the exact same menu as Taste and Savor, it just feels like a more elevated experience. So if I'm eating in a main dining room on a Norwegian ship and they happen to have the Manhattan room, that's where I head. So we did that the first night. The second night, we went to Le Bistro, which I had no interest in because I'm not really a French food person, but it was her one restaurant that she really wanted to do. So I said, okay, I've got the credits. Why not? It was phenomenal. I've never been a fan of Le Bistro. I've been there a few times. It was an absolutely amazing meal. And as you would hope in that type of restaurant, the service was just impeccable. You could not ask for anything better. It was one of those, the service was so good that I actually stopped and filled out one of those, vacation hero cards for the service team because I thought they were pretty amazing. Day 3, I believe day 3 was Halloween. That we also, because it was Halloween and we were in costumes, we ended up going to the Manhattan Room again because we didn't want to like be in costumes in a fancy restaurant or even a nice restaurant. So we just went to the Manhattan Room. Again, great experience. That night they actually put us at a table very close to the front, which meant we were right there next to the band. Although I don't remember there being a band. At some point, some guy came out and started playing guitar, but he didn't last very long. But didn't matter. We were really just there to have a fairly quick dinner so we could go enjoy the Halloween festivities. The next night was Food Republic, which is one of my favorite places. And I discovered on this trip something that I did not know before. On sea days, Food Republic is often open for lunch, which is fantastic. The other thing was, so if you've been to Food Republic, it's one of those places where you order off an iPad. And if you're using your dining program, you get to order 4 things. So if you are dining with somebody and you're both using the dining program, you can order 8 things. We had a fantastic server who came over before we started and said, listen, just use one of your dining cards because everything's share plates. Just use one, order 4 things. If you want to order more, then add the second person's, meal voucher onto it. And she was right. We ordered 4 things and we're stuffed full, and we saved the other person's dining voucher for another night. So that's true of lunch and dinner. Not every waiter will tell you that, but if you ask, can we just use one and split it between both of us? They will usually let you. I actually, in fact, met a young couple who was having a very special dinner at Le Bistro. They actually asked if they could use one dining credit in the French restaurant and like basically split an appetizer, split a main entree. And they were allowed to, which I thought was super cool because they were a nice young couple who didn't have a lot of money. And I thought that was very cool. The last night we went to Cagney's because I always end every cruise in the steakhouse on the last night. It was very good, but it was not quite as good as I remember it being in the past. I think mainly because I ordered wrong. I should have ordered something different than I did, but it was still a very nice evening, fantastic service, excellent dessert. One of the best desserts I had the whole week. It was this cheesecake covered with caramel and chocolate, and it was a thing of beauty, and it melted in your mouth. It was absolutely phenomenal. Trying to think, I must have eaten somewhere else because I've skipped a couple, but I don't. Oh, we went to La Cucina. We went to La Cucina one night, which was, again, a restaurant that I am not really into. I'm just not really into that much Italian food, especially, if it's a specialty dining thing, because I like make pasta at home. But again, excellent meal throughout. I think we had fantastic meals. There were some service issues. I mean, that is something that has been a problem on a lot of ships ever since we came back from the shutdown. And we definitely had some service issues. There were times when things took a while. There were bars where there would be one bartender and they clearly needed like 3 at least. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't the kind of thing where it was like, going to ruin your trip or anything. But it was definitely, to me, a little bit noticeable. I don't know that she noticed necessarily because, like I said, she's pretty new. She's only done like one cruise before, and that was not on Norwegian. And in the past, I've always had pretty good service on Norwegian. So that was a little thing. It wasn't a big thing. It wasn't a big bump in the road, but it was definitely noticeable to me.
The Le Bistro, you were saying that you weren't looking forward to it. I feel the same way about a lot of the French restaurants on board, like even at Princess as well. What made it stand out? I'm curious because like they had food that I saw on the menu on Viva and also the Princess menu as well. Obviously a different cruise line that just didn't appeal to me. What was so good about it?
Well, okay, we're going to start off with a word that I know you love, escargot.
Oh yeah.
They had excellent escargot. And then because, I didn't want anything complicated, so I went with a baked onion soup, which was perfect. I mean, it was just, the cheese was melty and it had the croutons on top and a big piece of bread. Actually, it wasn't a crouton. It was perfect. And then for dinner, they had a braised shank and roasted lamb chop. And again, It was perfectly prepared, and it was spicy. It was done in a Moroccan spice, and even the side dishes, it had like dried fruit and some sweet potatoes and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It just really was phenomenal. I have never had that good of a meal in Le Bistro before. It was a great combination.
I know it's not really food, but did you hit up Starbucks at all during your selling?
I did, because I bought the premium drink package, and with the premium drink package, you got unlimited Starbucks. They don't really have a full Starbucks on this ship. Like some ships like Prima, Viva, they have full Starbucks. This is more like the Atrium Cafe coffee shop that they have on every ship, and it happens to serve various Starbucks items, but it is not like a full-blown Starbucks. And but it was worth it. I mean, I stopped there every day and got my caffeine and white chocolate milk espresso something or other. I don't remember what it was, but it was really yummy and very much worth it. And like I said, since if you're going to pay for the premium drink package, that's included, so why not?
Before we launch into entertainment here, I want to kind of set the stage with this listener email we received. It says, we are looking to book the Escape and are wondering about the service and entertainment. I've read/heard reviews that NCL has downsized in these areas. Just wondering how impactful it was over the entire cruise experience. That's from Patrick.
It was definitely noticeable on both counts. Like I said, service was a little bit, I never saw I saw my room steward once, on day one when I primed the pump with a tip, and no complaints about him. I mean, the one thing I always ask for is a fresh bucket of ice every day, and he did give that. But it just, usually when you're on a cruise, you see your steward a couple times, they stop by, they, whatever. They do only do the once a day service, and as far as I know, they don't even ask anymore, do you want morning or night? It's just basically, they come in after you've left for the day and they clean the room. So definitely some service cutbacks. Entertainment was also a little bit more lacking than I'm used to finding. One of the things I really love on ships, and this is both, especially like Carnival and Norwegian are both really good at this. I don't find Royal Caribbean to be quite as good, but I love wandering around at night and hearing, there might be a singer here and a band there and this, that, and the other. And they did have entertainment going on. Like they did have, a regularly scheduled band, the piano players in Howl at the Moon, however many nights. And they did have shows going on, but it didn't seem like there was as much. It just felt like, and the talent, quite honestly, didn't seem quite as good as it's been in the past. For example, they had a piano player in the District Brew House. He's actually something kind of a name. He was on The Voice, I believe, last season. He didn't win The Voice, but he was on The Voice. And he was okay, but he seemed a lot more interested in shilling for tips than he did actually performing, and that was kind of a big turnoff, especially since, you're not all that great, so maybe dial back the shilling for tips. The one thing I will say is they have some really good entertainment on the ship as far as, for example, Choir of Men. That might be the best show at sea. I've seen it a couple times. If you have been cruising with Norwegian for a long time, you might recall that they used to do that as sort of a dinner theater show. They would have, it was a very small venue, and like the performers would come and they'd dance on your table and sit with you and have a beer. They don't do that anymore because they now do it in the theater. But before the show starts, they invite everybody who wants to come up on stage and get a beer, and they do like 10, 15 minutes of just them on stage hanging out with people from the theater. It's very cool. And the show itself is phenomenal. I mean, that is something you have to make reservations for. Please do make reservations. If you can, make reservations twice, because you're going to see it and you're going to love it and you're going to want to see it again. That is a phenomenal show. The other thing that I really enjoyed, this ship has a supper club, and it changes week to week what's going to be in there, whoever they have. We had a singer named Ashley Tate who was fantastic. The meal was, you had no choice. It was either an eggplant parmesan or a chicken parmesan, and then like a salad and a dessert. But it was free. This was all included. It wasn't something that you pay for. And the performance was fantastic. obviously something like that, it's going to vary. It's going to depend on who happens to be on board and who they're putting in the theater. But I think it's worth checking out because it's a really fun, really intimate venue. There's only maybe 150, 200 people, and I believe it's first come, first serve. I don't believe they take reservations, but we had no problem. We just walked right in. There were 2 comics on board, and the best thing that they did, because it was almost impossible to get into the comedy shows, but one night for whatever reason, they had both comics performing in the theater. And it was fantastic because, you didn't have to worry about not getting in. It's a great venue. I don't know why you wouldn't use a theater for something like that, because comedians are very popular, and no matter whether you're on Carnival or Norwegian, the venue they're in is always too small, and you have to go to a standby line or make reservations. In the theater, you didn't have to worry about that. So if you're looking to see the comedians, check the schedule, see if they're going to be in the theater, and try and see them that night, because you can just walk right in, and it's fantastic. So yes, there were definitely cutbacks in both of those areas, service and entertainment. Was it enough to derail my trip? No. If I wasn't a regular Norwegian sailor, I probably wouldn't have even noticed, because, there was a band in the atrium. And so, yeah, I probably wouldn't have been as aware of it if if this wasn't something that I sort of, focus on and write on.
Hey, how about the Wheel of Fortune is now on this ship?
Yes, Wheel of Fortune is on this ship, and I wanted to love it. I really did. I love Wheel of Fortune. I love the games. I love Deal and No. I love when they play Deal or No Deal on the ship. Unfortunately, I found Wheel of Fortune to be it was not good for 2 reasons. One, our cruise director was a nice guy, very good, but he did not have the personality and he wasn't quick enough on his feet to do Wheel of Fortune. Like, at no point did he interact really with the 3 contestants. He didn't ask where they're from or make little jokes with them or anything. He just he seemed very out of his element. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is there's an assistant cruise director on Escape named Marco with a C. And I saw him do several programs. I think he would have been a great choice for this. He's much quicker on his feet. So that was the first problem with it. But the second problem is it is incredibly reliant on technology. When you walk in the theater, whether you want to buy tickets or play along, you have to have a phone. You have to scan a QR code, and then you go to a site and you enter your name, and then you download whether you want to buy 2 tickets or 5 tickets. You can't really play along on your phone unless you are buying tickets. The whole first 10 minutes of the thing was the cruise director explaining how this was going to work. Not only the rules of Wheel of Fortune, but the rules of how it would work on your phone, which are incredibly complicated. It's nothing like Deal or No Deal, where you just walk up, give them money, they give you a card, and you play along. It really, they need to go back to the drawing board, take out the technological aspect. I get why they want to do that, but the internet is already sometimes sketchy on a ship. So to do your entire big once a week game show in such a way that you are reliant on the ship's internet and people being technologically savvy enough in order to interact with it just felt like a big mistake. And there was no energy in the audience because they weren't getting any energy from the stage. Luckily, one of the contestants was absolutely hysterical. He knew what he was doing, and he played the audience and made it more fun. But the best way I can put it is I'm a huge fan of this kind of format. There were 3 rounds, and I walked out after the second. I was just like, no, this is not good. So it needs some tweaking.
But how are you winning the actual money if you're paying for a ticket or paying for a pass to play? Are you playing along with the contestants?
Yeah, the way it works is, let's say that they land on the $20 spot and they pick a G. If on your phone you have the $20 spot and a G, you get points. And the points add up as the game goes on. And then there's also an option as as you're playing along, if you know the puzzle and you enter your puzzle in, the first person who entered it on the phone, as opposed to the contestants, gets like, a Wheel of Fortune keychain or something. It's really complicated. It's really, really complicated. And I mean, I'm not the smart. I don't think that you should have to have a college degree in game tech in order to play a game on a cruise ship.
Well, let's switch gears here and talk about entertainment that you like, the casino. How was it overall? Did it pay out for you? And what was the smoke situation like? And how was the smoking situation?
Well, the casino was very, very good to me. The casino definitely paid for the trip. I hit several, I never hit like a big jackpot, but I hit like $1,000 here and $700 here and $800 there. So the casino was very good. They have a pretty decent array of machines and table games and stuff. The smoke situation is what it is on these ships. It is not great. They constantly are announcing that, smoking is only for people who are playing, but nobody pays attention to that. Everybody disregards it. And of course, we were when we went to La Bistro, we were gonna eat at the outdoor area. And when I say outdoor area, it's outside of the restaurant, but inside of the ship. It's in the courtyard area. But the casino is directly above, and the smoke smell comes right down. It was like kind of, not something you wanted when you were eating. So yeah, the smoke situation isn't great. The casino hosts were fantastic. They actually had really good drink service, or at least I did. I tend to, if I find a good server, I tend to make sure I tip them well and sort of keep their attention all week. So there was a guy, Jerry. He has been working with Norwegian for 22 years. He is a drink server in the casino, and tell him Richard said hi and befriend him, because he was my best friend and kept me well hydrated the entire week.
Do they still have those finger foods there? I remember you always liked those late night eats in the casino.
They did. I know at one point I walked over and had something, but they didn't seem to do it very frequently, or maybe it was just that I wasn't in the right area at the right time, because it's tucked away in like this little corner, sort of over by the tables. And I probably just didn't notice when they brought out food because I was so into my game.
So give us a lowdown on the Halloween party. Did you dress up this year? What kind of bash was it on board? Halloween night go.
Halloween was awesome, although the party wasn't awesome. So Halloween, there were so many people dressed up, and there were so many great costumes. There was one family that came as basically all the characters in The Little Mermaid, and they were stunning. They were incredible. They were getting stopped every 2 seconds to get their photo taken. Mine was very simple. I, did some makeup, and I have from a previous project I had done, I have a vampire cape. So I was a vampire. And Kimberly was dressed as, there's a word for it, but I can't remember the word, but she basically looked like one of those German girls who serve beers on the casino machines. One of the things they did, and I had been on one previous Halloween cruise, so I was hoping they would do this. They closed down the children's area early, and they turned it into one of those walk-through, almost like at Halloween or Hollywood Scare Nights or whatever they call it in Orlando. You walk through and people jump out at you. They took the supper club and turned it into that, and it was so much fun. I mean, just people screaming and peeing their pants, and it was a blast. If there was a downside to Halloween, it was that there were so many people in so many costumes that when you went to the Halloween party, which was held at Spice H2O, which is a nice outdoor area on the back of the ship, they were doing the Halloween costume contest, and they had like 20 different categories. It took forever. There were like 70 people in the, best single outfit. There were 30 kids entered in the kids costume, and you had to wait for each of them to go up on stage. And I didn't stay. I ended up leaving and just went to the casino and had a frighteningly good time winning money. So, but Halloween on the ship was a lot of fun. The crew members all got really into it. There were a lot of them in costumes, and it was overall a really good time.
So let's talk about the days at sea on this 7-night cruise. You had a couple going back and forth to Bermuda from New York. So how were they as far as crowds and congestion?
It was interesting because they actually changed our itinerary because of the weather. We were supposed to leave New York be at sea for 2 days, be in Bermuda for 3 days, and then have 1 day sailing back. They actually flipped that. So we had 1 day at sea at the beginning and then 2 days at sea on the way back. I love that. I like ending on sea days. So that was kind of an unexpected, fantastic bonus. I thought the ship did really well. Now, part of that may be because on at least one of those sea days, we had some rough weather. There were some people definitely staying in their cabins and kind of like, worshiping the porcelain god because it wasn't terrible. It's not like silverware was crashing on the floor or anything. But for people who aren't necessarily don't have their sea legs, it was a little bit rough. But the ship, They did a really good job of keeping things going around on in the various venues. There was always something going on in the atrium. They had, including a couple of new games that I had never seen before, which was fun. That was when we found out that you could go to Food Republic for lunch, and since nobody knew about that, it was pretty empty, which was great. So yeah, we very much enjoyed the sea days.
I'm surprised you haven't brought up the local yet, and that's one of your favorites on board.
We did go to the local one day, and I got the wings, which are always fine. She got some stuff that was not good. Like she got a spinach dip that was basically green water. Her Reuben was very good, but it was service wasn't great there. It was always crowded, which it can often be. I should mention that one of the things that we did that made the entire trip great, since she had paid for our parking at the pier, I bought us both passes to the Vibe Beach Club, which is it's a private area on deck like 19. It's got its own bar. It's got a hot tub. It's got really comfortable loungers, and they only sell about 50 or 60 passes to it. There were never more than maybe 15 people up there, and we always had a blast. The bartender was constantly serving us shots. People were it was, if you wanted to hang out with people, there were people at the bar who were very friendly and wanted to hang out. If you didn't want to, there was plenty of room up there that you could go somewhere else and, just like sit and read or whatever. We spent a good portion of the first sea day and the last sea day there. It costs around $220 a person, I want to say. But I definitely found it worth it. Now, a little bit later in the year, when you lose a lot of your outdoor time to bad weather sailing out of New York, it probably wouldn't have been worth it. But we had for as late in the year as we were sailing, we had pretty good weather, so it was kind of awesome.
And then you make your way to Bermuda. You're there. So this was an abbreviated Bermuda stop. Did you get to do anything when you're on the island?
Well, we were there for 2.5 days. The first day it was pouring rain, and so we donned ponchos and wandered around St. George and had lunch over there. The second day we were scheduled to go to the beach, and it was kind of windy. It wasn't raining, but it was pretty windy. And we were both like, you know what? If I want to get like exfoliated by sandblasting, I'll go to the spa. So we decided to skip the beach and just stay on the ship and enjoy the fact that it was empty. And then the third day, Thursday, we left, but the ship was leaving at like 2:00, so we didn't really do anything. Bermuda to me was really just a place for the ship to park while I hung out on the ship, because I'm all about the ship. And we did have some plans that we were going to do a few things that we basically ended up blowing off. So, but we were both okay with that.
All right. So did you have any like really rough weather out there?
We had some rough weather, not really rough, but there were, you could feel the ship rocking sometimes. Mm-hmm. And, you always know it's going to be one of those days when you leave your room and you're getting ready to go up the stairs. And on the end of the staircase, they've put out the little container of barf bags and they did break out the barf bags once or twice. So yeah, there was definitely some weather, but it wasn't anything too terrible.
Mm-hmm. You make your way back to Pier 88 in Manhattan. How was the whole debark process?
Good, because we did something unusual. I find that Norwegian's debark process is usually a mess. I usually do self-disembarkation and I take my own luggage and stuff. She wanted to let them take her luggage the night before, and I was like, okay, you know what? I guess I'll try that too. So we left our luggage out the night before, got up in the morning, went down and had a nice leisurely breakfast, and then went and got in line when they called our number, which is like so not the way I normally do it. And there was still, even doing it that way and following all the rules, there was still quite a bit of a line, but it wasn't terrible. It ultimately, it didn't take that long to get off. And once we were, and they did the facial recognition thing in the port, so we were out of there pretty quickly.
Any first-time tips to offer someone sailing out of Manhattan or on Norwegian Escape?
If you are going to be having to do what we did and run around and, get reservations on board, get there as early as possible because you want to get the lowest boarding number possible so that you don't spend all of your first day. I would say, and this is true of pretty much any cruise, but it's definitely true of most Norwegian cruises, prepare for the first day, the first 3 hours to be a nightmare. There will be points in the first 3 hours where you're like, why did we do this? Between running around and making reservations and trying to get an elevator and waiting for the rooms to open because they didn't open until about 2:00. You will definitely get frustrated and you will be like, why did we do this? But that evening, as everything settles down and everybody spreads out across the ship and the crowds part, then you will settle back in and you will feel fine and normal until disembarkation day when the hell begins again. So, my biggest tip is always know that you're going on a cruise, know that some things are going to go wrong, and just, make sure to pack a good attitude. Was this a perfect cruise? No. It was way better than I anticipated because like the person who you read the letter from earlier, I have seen and experienced quite a few cuts on Norwegian over the last year or so. And so I was prepared for this to be a not so great trip. I hoped that wouldn't be the case because I really wanted Kimberly to have a great time. And it turned out we both had a fantastic time. So, it all worked out well.
Looking back, what was the biggest highlight of this cruise for you?
Doing shots in the Vibe. I mean, I swear every time I turned around, someone was yelling, "It's shot o'clock." and the bartender was making just all these crazy different kinds of shots. And you didn't, you were like, oh, I think I'm going to pass this round. And then you'd be like, well, that does look good. And so that was just especially one day in particular, it was just so much fun. It was a blast. And other than that, I would say winning in the casino. That never happened. So the fact that I came home with more money than I went with, definite highlight.
So you could be getting that come cruise with us again on us here pretty soon. Then.
I better, because let me tell you, when I did Celebrity in June, I won less money than I won on Norwegian. And I have been getting nonstop offers for free cruises from Celebrity. Right now, they're all out of Florida, so I'm not doing them. I'll wait until next year when they're sailing out of New York again. But I better get something from Norwegian because I earned it.
And in closing here, your final thoughts of Norwegian Escape.
It's a big ship. You have to know that going in. With passengers and crew, it's like 6,000 something. But it was a really good time, and I would book it again in a heartbeat. I wouldn't be nervous about it at all. And now I'm just counting down to the next one.
All right, go enjoy your Thanksgiving, man. I appreciate it.
Always glad to be here.
Have a question or a comment for the show? Yeah! Send an email or voice memo to doug@cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,